afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another rousing edition of the Tyler Werner Show, talking Philadelphia sports here in the summer days, right here in the McFarland Student Union building at Kutztown University, and currently experiencing some construction going on, but 3 o'clock they cease for the day, so with that in mind, we can proceed with the Tyler Werner Show without any noise interference or anything. So without further ado, let's get right on to the Philadelphia sports talk, starting with the Philadelphia Phillies season, which, when I think of the Philadelphia Phillies now, I mean, all that really comes to mind is the end of the season. I mean, really the end of an era, as far as I'm concerned, that couldn't be more apparent after this past week, with the Philadelphia Phillies play continuing. They had their first day off yesterday, and after playing about 20 games in a row, and I think really, I mean, we've kind of seen, essentially the last of this Philadelphia Phillies era with the player. I mean, the aging players that Ruben Demaro continues to insist on rooting the organization to, and I mean, essentially, I mean, you have Citizen Bank, the Citizen Bank Park Arena just half empty, and fans are by not coming to the games, the home games, in Philadelphia. I mean, it just goes to show you that the interest in this team is just not there anymore. And when it comes to that point, really in this day and age, I mean, that's when it's really time to. And I kind of mentioned this last week. I mean, it's just kind of time to start anew. And I mean, we kind of saw that when they moved Ryan Sandberg up to manager late last season, and I mean, Ruben Demaro, I mean, is probably gone after this season, but I mean, really, I mean, it's basically the magic is clearly long gone from the 2008 World Series Phillies team, and that's really, I mean, all we can say right now. Now, last week was it was a rather interesting week last week, actually, when things began. It's funny how everything seems to happen on Tuesday, on days when I do the show, and it seems like right after the show or whatever, like that's when a bunch of new happenings come up within the Philadelphia sports world, and even just on a national level, other sports. But last week was very, very interesting, starting with last Tuesday when Larry Bowa, the Phillies bench coach, was on. He was actually on the Tony Bruno and Harry Mays show, which I kind of I mentioned I mentioned them in the past, but actually Larry Bowa was interviewed last week by Tony Bruno and Harry Mays, and this interview was rather intriguing, because I mean, Larry Bowa just voiced his anger with the team and the frustration with the team last Tuesday morning, for about 10 minutes, and I mean, he kind of just chastised, called out Dominic Brown and Roberto Hernandez, and kind of criticized the team's younger players. The failures to pitch beyond 5 innings, and when the Phillies went 4-7 in their most recent homestand, he categorized that homestand as one of the worst he's seen in his 68-year-old baseball life. And Larry Bowa kind of just said, they're very frustrated, and I think they're more frustrated at the way we lose, and they should be. That's not big league baseball, and what we've been doing at home, that's not big league baseball, is essentially what he said. He also goes on to blame an inconsistent offense, said the core players have done their jobs, but the younger ones have not. So, kind of calling out the younger players here as well. I mean, even though they, of course you got, A.J. Burnett, 40 years old, and amongst other players who are, pushing 40 and on this team. And so Larry Bowa, essentially last Tuesday morning, really calling out, the Phillies team and, just showing his frustration, right here on or not right here, but right on the Tony Bruno and Harry Mays show on 97.5 The Fanatic. Now this interview kind of essentially prompted that afternoon a players only meeting before they were set to go on to face, or they were set to have a 3-game series with the Washington Nationals, starting with a game later that night. So, I guess this interview here with Tony Bruno and Harry Mays, and it just goes to show you how sitting here on Sports Talk Radio, there can be some interesting things that come out of it. And here, what came out of Tony Bruno and Harry Mays asking Larry Bowa some questions, I mean, really came out, Larry Bowa comes out with, frustration and it, I guess it prompts a players meeting later that afternoon. So, I mean, I guess Bruno Mays can take credit for that in a sense. But so nevertheless, I mean, that creates that whole, players only meeting. And then, unfortunately, I guess that players meeting didn't really accomplish anything because later on that night, the Phillies come out and lose 7-0 in the series to the Washington Nationals in Game 1 of that series, and so much for the players meeting, I guess. And to top it off, I mean, they get swept by the Nationals. The next couple of games that series, just continued struggles, really, generating offense, as Bowa would hint at. Then, over the weekend, they got their weekend series with the Cincinnati Reds. And they start off with a huge 8-0 win in this series, but then they lose the next two, and essentially, I mean, they had yesterday off, as I mentioned earlier, and essentially what we had is basically now essentially the worst team in the National League in Major League Baseball, and they got a series coming up with the Padres, so really, I mean, the Phillies, who were earlier in the season, I mean, they were 500. I mean, they were kind of right there in this division race for the NL East. But, I mean, essentially, now they have sunk to, a new low, and that is, the bottom of the National League Conference in Major League Baseball. So, love to hear your thoughts on this at 610-683-4859. Really, I mean, time to move on with the Phillies, and I mean, it's time to make some moves here, I guess. Really, players that maybe they before they retire, they want to compete for a contender. I don't know, and then maybe the Phillies can bring in some younger talent. I don't know. I mean, if you want to make like a trade idea or something. I mean, you got the Facebook page for the Tyler Werner Show. Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. You can post your thoughts on that, amongst other things on today's show, because we certainly have more to talk about, which with starting with I mean, obviously what was a very interesting NHL final series and a very interesting NBA final series. Of course, last week I talked about that. Which series were you looking more forward to? And, I favor the basketball series right now. Or I did last week. And I thought, it was just very unpredictable, and I wasn't sure. To me, I was a little more uncertain about, the outcome of that series than the NHL final series. And, LeBron, can he get his third straight ring and continue to make that push towards, giving Michael Jordan a run for his money as far as being, considered the greatest NBA player of all time. We definitely have some debate with what transpired in that series. We definitely have a lot to talk about with that. Of course, I mean the LA Kings and New York Rangers series in hockey started out with really with a bang, with 2 back-to-back overtime games over in LA. Really, I mean, you want to talk about fans getting their money's worth. I mean, even though the ticket prices are really staggering, obviously, for this series. The Kings, in games 1 and 2, they were, apparently, I mean, if you look at it, they had not had the lead in either of those 2 games in regulation. That was the stat floating around. Now in game 1 of the series, I mean, they were down 2-0, and they battled back to tie it up and eventually get them into the into overtime. And if I'm not mistaken, that's the one that went into double over, or maybe that was the second game. I'm mixing my games up here, but I mean, nevertheless, I mean, it went into overtime, and of course, overtime in the NHL playoffs, it's not 4-on-4 5 minutes. It's like another regulation period, which to me is, that's how I prefer, my overtime when it comes to NHL hockey.
I agree.
I mean, it's, I understand why in the regular season, they go 4-on-4 for 5 minutes, and if they can't figure it out, it's a shootout. Even though I'm not a big fan of the shootout in the NHL, kind of takes away, many aspects of the game, and it's kind of just to decide a winner and not have teams battling, for multiple periods and grinding to get a win. But in overtime hockey in the NHL playoffs, that's not how it works. And again, I mean, fans getting their money's worth over in LA these back-to-back nights when the Kings get 2 come-from-behind victories, getting both in overtime. A lot of clutch players, as I mentioned before on this show, on the LA Kings, ex-Flyers, essentially. The Flyers of the Western Conference, as some fans would go as far to say. And really, I mean, the Kings, come from behind, are just a tough, gritty team that don't lay down, and they start out 2-0 in that series, and then last night come out in Game 3. A desperation game here for the Rangers. Now the series moving over to the East Coast, over in New York, 3,000 miles away. And what you would think would be a desperate Rangers team coming off of 2 losses in overtime that they kind of just let slip away. The Kings just bury them 3-0 and shut out the New York Rangers in Game 3, and now they are on top of the series 3-0. And while you have a 1-1 NBA series which continues tonight over in Miami, which is obviously far from over, I mean, this Kings and Rangers Stanley Cup series could, for all, I mean, might just be over next game, or maybe the desperate Rangers try to stay in it. Maybe they pick up a win, but I mean, really, I mean, this series is, unless the Rangers pull off the miracle of the century, for all intents and purposes, is over. And it looks like the Kings are looking at another Stanley Cup, 2 Stanley Cups in 3 years. And again, I mean, it goes back to several ex-Flyer players from as far back as a decade ago that are really just clutch and especially in the playoffs, and are just looking at another Stanley Cup here. So I mean, that's where we're at right there with the LA Kings and New York Rangers series. I guess thanks for playing, New York Rangers, but I mean really, this LA Kings team is just, they don't let up, and even when they're down 2 goals, it doesn't mean they're out of it. And they just twice. I mean, they were down 4-2 in the second game, and they come back, they tie it up, they take it to overtime, and they pick up back-to-back overtime wins, and then they just bury the Rangers 3-0 last night, and LA Kings lead 3-0. Now, of course, obviously got a very interesting and intriguing San Antonio Spurs and Miami Heat series going on right now that, we'll talk a little more, before we hit the first break. Tied 1-1. A lot of interesting controversy with Game 1 of this series, with the not the Miami Heat, but the literal heat of the building that they were playing the game in, against San Antonio, with apparent air conditioning issues and this and that, which again, I'm not going to get into right this moment, just because it's before we hit the first break. So we got that, and then Game 2, the Heat rebounded and win a close game against the Spurs and tie up the series 1-1. It's going to be an interesting discussion on that, on what's going on with that series thus far. And coming up later, we have the also in the show last week as June 2nd, whatever. I mean, kind of right when I was doing my show, the USA Today annual record predictions for all 32 NFL teams in the 2014 season. Now, we'll talk about that later in the show as well, where the Eagles, stand according to these predictions. And it's really interesting because last season the prediction from USA Today was that the Seahawks would beat the Denver Broncos in the Super Bowl, and I mean, they didn't call the score, they didn't predict the score for that, which was obviously completely one-sided. But it's obviously nevertheless pretty interesting how they called that the ultimate outcome pretty spot on. So we'll get to that a little later in the show as well. And the Phillies. I mean, I kind of said all there really is to say with the Phillies, and Larry Bowa last week and on Tony Bruno and Harry May's show, kind of calling out the team, and I guess again, I mean, credit to Tony Bruno and Harry Mays for bringing this kind of getting Larry Bowa to speak out here, and the players only meeting that afternoon, and then they come out and they just get blown out by the Nationals that night, and they just lose the rest of the series and have only won one game in the last week. So it's another long week in the realm of Philadelphia Phillies baseball, and definitely want to hear your thoughts on that and how maybe this organization can move on. So 610-683-4859. That's the number to get in. We'll come right back after this. These words from our sponsors and this and that, and also again Facebook.com/Tyler Werner Show. Great way to get in on the show, just to post comments or questions. So it is the Tyler Werner Show, and it's right here on Kutztown Radio.
You're listening to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUO.
If you're in a traffic accident and have special medical needs, the Yellow Dot program can help. Hi, I'm State Senator Judy Schwank with a Pennsylvania Moment. A Yellow Dot decal on your vehicle's rear window tells emergency personnel that there's vital medical information about you in the car's glove compartment. Call your local PennDOT office or log on to yellowdot.pa.gov. I'm State Senator Judy Schwank with a Pennsylvania Moment.
3:21, right on the Tyler Werner Show on Kutztown Radio. What started out as a dreary-looking day is kind of turning into a sunny day here up at Kutztown, and obviously it is it's I guess the technical beginning of summer by according to what the calendar says is right around the corner, but nevertheless, I mean, I'm a little surprised yet that we haven't even come close to really hitting the 90-degree mark. Normally by this time, we do have a couple, a day or two or even more. But then when we hit the 90-degree mark or beyond, and here at June 10th, and I don't even know if we've gone above 82 or 83 really as a high. I'm a little surprised by that, but nevertheless, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we're coming off that mild winter or not mild winter, that brutal winter, I guess I should say. And what I mean to say is, so far it's a, mild summer, I guess. If you go by the terms that summer begins, Memorial Day weekend or the start of June, as I normally consider it. But nevertheless, as we talk about Heat here, let's talk about the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs. And let me crack my knuckles here too while I get it, because this is an interesting topic of discussion is Game 1 of this NBA Finals series, which and heading into the series, first of all, because we're gonna have a lot of LeBron James conversation here, and I mean, again, this is Philadelphia Sports Radio, and for my credibility's sake, I'm not a Miami Heat fan. I'm at the end of the day, I'm talking Philadelphia sports, and I'm behind the 76ers, even though, right now they're, one of the worst teams in the league by record, and, this and that. I mean, haters can say what they want, but, it's a rebuilding process right now for the Sixers, and, obviously we're hoping that, the Sixers will be back in the mix, and maybe get that NBA championship, maybe build that dynasty and this and that. But, that doesn't mean that I'm not, interested in this NBA Finals series right now. And LeBron James, becoming one of the greatest players of all time. And I think, one of the things that makes, my theory with LeBron James and people that just kind of hate him for no better reason is that, they're Michael Jordan fans, and that LeBron James, depending how many championships he ends his career with, because if they win this series, he's at 3. He's 29 years old. He's still in his prime. He could still win a couple more, whether it be with the Heat or somebody else, maybe another contender, the rest of his career. Some would argue that he, and with the records he might set or break or come close to breaking, and just his overall skill on the floor and completeness of his game, there's arguments being made that, LeBron James could possibly surpass Michael Jordan as the greatest NBA player of all time. And, I'm not going there today, but, at the pace he's playing, he very well could. You could make a case down the road, if his great play continues and he wins a few more championships, that could be a conversation several years from now, certainly. Definitely when it's all said and done with LeBron James playing in the NBA. And that's my theory. Like, people just hate LeBron James for that reason, I guess. I don't know. They love Michael Jordan, and nobody can ever, nobody will ever become a better player than him, and this and that. And, I don't know. There's other silly reasons that, I don't know, that I guess people come up with. He's a whiner on the basketball court. And, every great, a lot of great players whine on the basketball court. In Game 2, Tim Duncan, you could say the same thing about him. And, they all do, disagree with calls from the referees and this and that. And, even though it's, really hard sometimes to tell, in real time, whether the ball goes off somebody's leg or hand or this and that, and all this going on in the NBA, in this fast-paced NBA game of today. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't understand the LeBron hate out there that a lot of people have. I mean, he's just, he's just, considered right now the greatest player of basketball in the world, and that's that. Some people hate him. I don't know. They hate the Heat for that reason, and they root for whoever's playing against the Heat in the playoffs. I mean, that's that. But nevertheless, I mean, Game 1. Let's get down to this, because in Game 1, I mean, you had this air conditioning problem apparently. Down in San Antonio. I mean, I mentioned how it seems a little mild for summer up here right now, but San Antonio, it's Texas and Miami at this time of the year. Obviously, you got brutal heat, brutal humidity, and apparently in Game 1, a couple hours before the game, is when the air conditioning system apparently was not working at all, and you had some kind of apparent breakdown, and then apparently at about midnight is when the air conditioning came back on. So a couple hours before the game started, and then it comes back on, kind of mysteriously or coincidentally around 12, at 12 midnight. I don't know, conspiracy theorists out there. I don't know. I mean, what do you think of that kind of timing there? I don't know. I mean, they say home court advantage for a reason, and San Antonio, I guess they're pretty used to this, but maybe the Miami Heat, they're not as used to playing in a building that I guess has no air conditioning on whatsoever, and essentially it exceeds temperatures of the 90-degree mark, and I don't know. I mean, it's very odd, but this, I guess, in conjunction with maybe not good enough hydration or whatever you want to call it, essentially caused LeBron James to have major muscle cramps. Now, a lot of people, and again, this is where the haters really come out and kind of, in a sense, I mean, embarrass themselves, for lack of a better, term, because, they're all kind of talk on the internet and this and that, and just from haters, oh, LeBron James, he's not going to play through he wouldn't play through little cramps last night and this and that, and, some people were, lacking in this area of health so much, and just, so caught up in their hate with LeBron James that they think menstrual cramps, they compare it to menstrual cramps, and, I saw a picture somebody posted on Facebook of, like a meme, where on the top it has the singer from Pantera or something, and it said, gets hit in the head with a guitar, bleeds down his head, and it not only continues the line he's singing, he continues the song, and he continues the rest of the concert, and then at the bottom half, it has a picture of LeBron James, I guess, kind of getting helped off the court from that game, and saying like has leg cramps or something, and pulls out of the game, and but
yesterday I did pull out.
That's not. It's a little different when you have muscle cramps, and let's kind of get down to the technicalities here. It's not. Not that I would know, but it's not like menstrual cramps. It's not like, whatever kind of cramps you want to, talk about. When you have, severe dehydration, and LeBron James, he's probably the most, muscularly defined, guy out there on the court. When you're pretty built like that. And, again, this is where a lot of, haters out there wouldn't understand this, and probably maybe don't even do anything for physical activity. You need, the muscles of the body need hydration, and you're more in the kind of heat that and humidity, I guess, that they were playing in Game 1 with this, supposed breakdown of the air conditioner system or whatever, you need to be very well hydrated. And LeBron James, I mean, he plays 40 minutes a game. He not only is he like the greatest player right now overall in the game, he plays more minutes than anybody else on the floor. So I mean, but anyways, getting back to the the whole muscle cramp thing, that in conjunction with maybe he wasn't hydrated well enough. Well, to me, I mean, one of the issues with the trainer, I guess the training staff here, and is they have them drinking like Powerade and the sponsorships, and I do a lot of physical activity, and I don't drink any Powerade or any of those Gatorade stuff. I'm just plain straightforward water. I mean,
Different water.
Right. That's the best way to hydrate ultimately at the end of the day. Just plain water. In these Powerade drinks and these Gatorade drinks, you got these syrups, these sugary substances and whatever that they put in Gatorade. I don't know. I haven't had a Gatorade in probably 10 years. Along the lines of other drinks, sports drinks like that, and other sugary drinks. It's different than water, and I think that's part of the problem here. Those drinks can dehydrate you a little bit, and whereas water is just pure hydration. When you're playing in this kind of heat, you need to be hydrated, and especially when you got more muscle. The muscles need to be hydrated as well. So when LeBron had these muscle cramps, what people don't understand about these muscle cramps is that, not only they're unpredictable, really, as when they happen, but you essentially can't really do anything. You can't move. It's not like, it's different than, playing on a broken leg or something like that. I mean, the muscles of the body there can still function. And it's different when you have, these temporary muscle cramps, though. I mean, the muscles of the body lock up, the calves, the thighs, this and that, whatever you want to, point out, and you can't move. You can't. That's how it is, and it goes back to, a lot of LeBron haters or people just watching the games that don't, aren't very up on this kind of this kind of health topic. They just want to understand that, and it's been brought up in the past that LeBron James has had issues like this in the past, with muscle cramps and cramping up, and it happens a lot to track runners, and I've seen it happen with in track meets. And I used to run. I ran track all throughout high school and junior high school. I know how you have to stay hydrated and this and that, and that's what happened here. It wasn't a matter of LeBron James just it's a close competitive game, but no, LeBron James just wants to back out and be a crybaby or this and that, and just doesn't have the willpower. I mean, that's foolish, and a lot of haters out there kind of pointed at that as that it was LeBron James' lack of willpower or something that he didn't want to play. No, it was a matter of just not adequate hydration, I guess. And the training staff and so, of the Miami Heat and such did claim that they did stretch. They're really trying to keep everybody hydrated and this and that, and but I mean Powerade is not. I would not recommend Powerade or Gatorade as being factored anywhere in that equation when you're talking about real hydration. In conjunction with the bad, I guess, air conditioning system, where apparently the temperatures in the building reach close to 100 degrees. I mean, I don't know, but the bottom line is the muscles. For the athletes out there, for people who are doing athletic activity, maybe I should mention, they need hydration, and people that are, sitting in beanbag chairs, eating Cheetos, and, just kind of watching the LeBron James and Miami Heat, dynasty try to win a third championship and root against them. I guess you just wouldn't understand that.
Go ahead, hater.
So that's that. But, the Heat come out and lose that game, and as far as, all these hydration problems goes and how it affected the Miami Heat the rest of the game. At that point, the game was almost tied, really, and could have gone either way up until the point where, LeBron James had these, pretty debilitating, muscle cramps that you essentially cannot play on. And and even if he would have tried to play on them, there would have been no point because he wouldn't have really been able to move at all. And, so, that's that. And, muscle cramps can become pretty unpredictable. And, as when you're playing at a high level like this in the NBA and, you're LeBron James. But again, a lot of people wouldn't understand that. So the Spurs go on to win, they pretty much take care of the rest of the game there in the fourth quarter and win 110-95. So, again, that game was right there for anybody's taking until LeBron James went out. And, it kind of goes back to the whole, square one of when I was saying last week, the Spurs I think they're a deeper team. They're a little more well-rounded, whereas, LeBron James at times is, kind of going to have to carry the Miami Heat. And, I think this kind of went to show when the game was right there for anybody's taking. And, without LeBron James, the Miami Heat did not have an answer the rest of the game, and they just kind of fell flat and ended up losing by 15. But things would be different in Game 2 when LeBron James would, coming back from his muscle cramp issues, poor hydration, whatever. The Heat come out and they, I was watching this game pretty closely, and LeBron James coming back with a vengeance in this game. 35 points, 10 rebounds. He's just all over the place. And with LeBron in the entire game here, the Miami Heat win a big, back and forth battle with the San Antonio Spurs, 98-96. Really stepping up here, and after that game one disappointment, I guess you could say. And both these games were in San Antonio, and so the Heat come, and now the series will be at Miami the next couple of games. And I also found it interesting the other night, what the Greg Popovich, San Antonio Spurs head coach interview, what he had to say about defending LeBron James and what they got to do. Greg Popovich, known for his kind of humorous interviews, but just so for I guess all the people pulling for the Spurs, I guess this is what Greg Popovich had to say about game planning against LeBron James.
Pop, what are your objectives where LeBron is concerned?
Are you serious? We're going to keep him from scoring.
What would you like to see here in the fourth?
I'd like to see LeBron play poorly.
Okay, sounds good, Pop.
Yeah, so I don't know. That's what Greg Popovich had to say there about that Game 2 Game 2 showdown with the Miami Heat, the Miami Heat and the San Antonio Spurs. So we got to head to the next break, though, before we close out the show. So without further ado, 610-683-4859 is the Tyler Werner Show, and is right here on Kutztown Radio.
Are you looking to have your very own radio show? Do you like music or talking? Come join Kutztown University's very own radio club. We meet every Tuesday from 11 to 12, and we offer a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. We hope to see you next semester.
Looking for exceptional research and fieldwork opportunities? The Chincoteague Bay Field Station is an environmental education facility located on the eastern shore of Virginia. We offer a variety of college courses each summer ranging from geology and biology to literature and marine science. For years, Kutztown University students have come to the field station to participate in cutting-edge research and gain practical experiences that help them secure a job in their field. Find out how you can get involved today at cbfieldstation.org. That's cbfieldstation.org.
.342 right here in the Tyler Werner Show on Kutztown Radio. We're kind of sweeping through the rest of the hour here, the 3 o'clock hour, talking about Philadelphia sports. And, well, I mean, we'll talk about the, record projections, I guess, for the from the USA Today article last week that came out, their annual predictions, where specifically, the Eagles. And again, I mean, we just talked a lot of NBA finals in the last segment there of the show. I'd love to hear thoughts on what's I mean, right now it's a 1-1 series between the Spurs and the Heat, and love to get thoughts on the whole game one issue with LeBron James, the cramps, this and that, and. And if anybody has legitimate reason as to why they just hate LeBron James so much, I mean, I guess try and convince me. I guess I don't know. I mean, I don't totally understand, but I mean, it is what it is for now. And right now, 1-1, Spurs and Heat. That series continues tonight at Miami. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, the Spurs are a team that very rarely loses at home, and I mean, Miami in those first two away games took one of those games in the Spurs building. So that's obviously crucial. So it'll be interesting to see how that series continues tonight when the Spurs go to Miami for Game 3. But before we get to the Eagles, to kind of close out the show, it's time for another edition of Summer Stories, which I kind of rolled out last week into the show, and I talked about I talked about how these stories, this is a little more unrelated to sports, but just nevertheless a way to kind of throw something out there for anybody, maybe who are more casual sports fans and don't aren't into them as much as maybe your average sports fan. But last week I rolled this segment out, and I said I have more on tap. So this thing that kind of become a little bit of a tradition here right now over the summer on the Tyler Werner Show. So this is edition 2, I guess you could say, of the Summer Story segment here. A few weeks ago, I was on break at work. I had an all day shift at work, and over at Red Lobster, and right next to the Red Lobster, there's an Olive Garden, and I mean, I'm a big fan of Italian food. I have Italian in me, and that day, I mean, it was a nice day. It was a mild day. I drive a black car, and in this summer heat, it can be, a little tough. But this was a few weeks ago. It was a nice day. It wasn't too hot, and it was all right in the car. I figured, why don't I go over to Olive Garden and get takeout and just eat in the car until it's time for me to continue my shift. And so I was in the mood for some like an Italian sausage and peppers sandwich, and
it was like sweet and sour pork, right?
Well, not really, but it was. So I went over to. So I figured I'd get a takeout order ready for 3:30 or whenever it was, and so I walk over to pick it up. And first of all, I mean, for those who haven't gotten takeout at an Olive Garden before, I mean, they really pile in the the goods. I mean, for I all I really desired was a sausage and peppers sandwich, and I get there, and in the bag is not only that, but I mean a big container of I guess Italian French fries. I mean that sounds like an oxymoron, but and there's a big container of salad, and not just for like one person. I mean it's like for like a family of 4 here. I had salad for the next few days, and of course they threw in some of their breadsticks here. So I mean, this could have like fed a family here. I mean, obviously, all I really asked for was the sausage sandwich, but nevertheless, I mean, I got more than I bargained for. So I mean, I guess I would recommend the takeout at Olive Garden. So I take it back to my car, and I'm eating this sausage sandwich, and between this time, I mean, it's getting close to dinner time, and there's more people coming into work, and one of the coworkers there, she's a lady. I mean, probably like a little later in her 20s than I, and I'm sitting there. And normally, I have my hair tied back when I'm working, but since I have long hair, but I'm sitting there, and I don't, I just kind of have it down at this point, and so she walks by the car, and at first, she looks at me and is like, "Oh, that's Tyler," and she says, "I thought you were a guest at first with your hair down." And so I just kind of laugh at it, while I'm sitting there eating my sausage sandwich, and I get inside later, and she says how she later on, as I'm working my shift, she says, I like you a lot better when your hair is down." And I mean obviously, first of all, well thanks. She's kind of someone that has my back, and stuff like that. She likes throwing compliments out there, but nice coworker that has your back. But she says she says how she likes me better when my hair's down like that, and I kind of add in there, thanks, but while I'm sitting there eating a sausage sandwich too, and I mean I don't know. I mean. Is that rim shot worthy? I mean, I don't know. Determine that on the Facebook page, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Nevertheless, I mean, I had to share that story. I mean, because I'm getting like marinara sauce. I mean, I wipe it off and everything, but it's Olive Garden. They really they know their Italian food, and they so I'm sitting there eating a sausage sandwich. Maybe with sauce on my face, I don't know, but nevertheless, I get, nice to get hair compliments, I guess, while I'm eating a sausage sandwich. But, nevertheless, we move on. That's your edition of, your another attempt at summer stories right here in the Tyler Werner Show as we move through the month of June, and certainly, I'm sure I'll have another one for next week to share. But without further ado, let's get back down to the sports business here. The NFL prediction. I mean, obviously, next month we got training camp. Right now we got some off-season OTAs. Want to mention that, Nick Foles is, he kind of had some. He said last week, of course, Colin Kaepernick, he got a new big contract. I think, an $18 million a year one. And, of course, this year, I mean, Nick Foles is kind of playing for a contract like that. Will he be the franchise quarterback? And, so Nick Foles was, kind of asked about, what he thinks. And, he's kind of just modestly said, I'm happy for him, and but he's not too concerned about that, and this and that. So Nick Foles, I mean, kind of just playing modestly as we would all predict he would. And
how's everyone doing?
And not really caught up in that right now. I guess as the Eagles move through the off season and approach training camp. But let's see what. Let's kind of go through here and see what the USA Today had for the record predictions. Starting with the NFC East, they have now this prediction has the Eagles winning the division. But by a wide margin, actually. They have the Eagles going 11-5, winning, essentially the rationale next to it is class of weak division, but can Nick Foles reproduce 2013 magic? Deshaun Jackson's speed will be missed, obviously that, but can Nick Foles reproduce the 2013 magic? Everybody, that's the big thing that everybody's, kind of saying how, it's like going to be impossible for Nick Foles to, have another touchdown interception ratio like 27-2 like he had last season. But I mean, like I've said before in this show, if he does something like, 35 touchdowns and 12 interceptions, that's still pretty good. I mean, or get somewhere in that 40, close to 40 touchdowns and 10, 13 interceptions. I mean, that could be realistic there. I mean, maybe not 40 touchdowns, but 35 and 10 could be very possible, and that would be pretty, acceptable there. It's not 27-2, but they don't. Nick Foles doesn't have to go 27-2 essentially to be a very successful football team. That's that. I mean, sure. I mean, Nick Foles went 27-2, but a lot of those, that didn't mean that a lot of those games that they were playing in weren't close. I mean, the Dallas Cowboys one was close, at the end of the season, and they lost to the Minnesota Vikings, and again, I mean, this is all while the 27-2 touchdown interception ratio season was going on. So that continues to be a conversation to me as far as what Nick Foles has to do in terms of stats, if that's what 2013 magic is hinting at there. But they have nevertheless they have the Eagles going 11-5, and the Redskins being second in the division, about 7-9. It might be a little closer than that. I don't know. I mean, when we did the Eagles schedule predictions, I believe last month, I had the Eagles at 10-6, right? And at the moment, I mean, I haven't gone up or down on that. And, the Redskins, I have them at like 8-8 or 7-9, 8-8 at best for the Redskins. I don't see them going any better than that. But they have the Redskins at 7-9, and yeah, I mean that's probably pretty realistic for them. The rationale there is if the line and RG3's knee hold up, this offense will be hard to slow, but defense may be a year away. And not only that, I mean their special teams too are going to hold them back. So yeah, I mean that's that. And then they have the Giants at 6-10. Eli Manning's supporting cast is getting younger, even if he isn't. Team speed doesn't impress. But then at the bottom of the division, the Cowboys, they have it 3-13. Of course, losing Sean Lee last week for the season. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they'll only win 3 games, but they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna have another 8-8 season like they've been having the past few years. But rationale for the Cowboys going 3-13. Tony Romo's back. Defense are looking awfully frail. Obviously, Dallas fans might end up pinning for 500 teams. So I mean, there you go. I mean, I don't know. I mean, 3-13. I don't know. That might be a little too harsh, but they might not even win 6. I mean, they might go 5-11. But yeah, I mean, exactly. They might end up pinning for 500 teams. So that's that. But as far as where this would leave the Eagles in the playoffs, now they have the. Well, as I look at the rest of the NFC here, they have let's see, they have the Packers getting the 2 seed at 12-4. They have the Saints 11-5 as the 3 seed, and they have the Seahawks going 12-4, being the 1 seed again. and ultimately winning the Super Bowl again, which, that's not a surprise to me. But they have the wild card teams. Let's see, 5. They have the Bears. They have the Eagles, the 4 seed, which means that they would play the Bears in the first round of the playoffs. And they have the 49ers as the 6th seed at 11-5. Now I would think that the 49ers are going to be the 5th seed again. Be a wild card, be the stronger wild card team. I don't have the Bears winning 11 games. I don't even think I have the Bears. I think the Bears, they might win 9 or 10, but I don't see them winning 11 games. The rationale is if defense was slightly better in 2013, this is a playoff team, and D seems significantly better now. I don't know. We'll wait and see, but they have the Bears 11-5 playing the Eagles. They have the Bears defeating the Eagles at in the wild card round and at Philadelphia. This is, to me, a lot of this season is defined upon what the Eagles do in the playoffs, because I think it's pretty inevitable that the Eagles should win this division again. Maybe not by 4 games like this prediction has them winning, but even if they win 9 games, they should still win the division against this tough schedule. But in the first round, now if they were the 4th seed, to me it'd be more realistic, more possible that they play the 49ers. And that would, that would bring the 49ers, 3,000 miles over here. And I think the question to me is, and as we continue to move through the summer here, since this is the end of the show for today, the question for me is that, if the Eagles make the playoffs and they lose in the first round again, even, if it's still the 49ers, if they have a home team, or a home game in the first first round of the playoffs, would that be enough? That's to me that's kind of what I look at here. Would that be a nice progressive movement in the future? That to me, I'd like to see him win at least a game in the playoffs this year. And it's not like Chip Kelly's going to get fired if he doesn't do anything in the playoffs this year, but I think to move in that right direction this year, and if Nick Foles plays well enough, and if Nick Foles wants to be that franchise quarterback, I think they have to. I think they should win a playoff game this year, and to me that would definitely buy Nick Foles another year here, and provided he has stats like I mentioned earlier. So that's that. That's kind of the question that remains here on the Tyler Werner Show as we move through the months of summer here. So, it's time to close down the show. So thanks for tuning in. You can catch this podcast up, tomorrow on the Facebook page at some point. And just send thoughts, comments, and definitely tell your friends about the show on Facebook.com. Tell them to like the show, and as we talk Philadelphia sports here throughout the summer. So with that in mind, everybody have a great rest of the week, and just try to watch the Phillies games if you're still interested, and we'll talk about where the finals stand for the NBA more specifically next week, as I think the Kings and Rangers will already be done by that point. So everybody have a great rest of your week, and we will talk to you next week on the Tyler Werner Show.
It's the top of the hour, and you're listening to the radio voice of Kutztown University, KUR Kutztown, found on campus at 1670 AM.